Hello and welcome to Meant to Move. I am Vanessa, your host. Welcome or welcome back. It's so nice to have you. This week, I am so excited for this conversation. I have with me Bart Walsh. I've known Bart for a really long time, as you will hear from our very first story, or his story that he tells me. But the theme of this entire conversation is resilience. Bart is a motivational speaker. He has been in the fitness industry for quite a long time, I think 10 plus years. I've known him for quite a long time. And Bart has an incredible story of challenge and overcoming those challenges, and has now moved into motivational and inspirational speaking. But his message is so important. It's so important. And throughout our conversation today, there are points where I have absolute goosebumps, and I just so wholeheartedly believe in what he's saying, in his message and in his approach. I think that this message is for so many people, and I highly recommend, if you're able to, pop this message in front of the people in your life who are struggling a little bit, who are hiding from their challenges, who are a little numb, who don't want to look at themselves in the mirror and acknowledge that they have the power to change their life, because they need to hear messages like the one Bart has. And I think that today's conversation is a really beautiful introduction to his story, to his messages, and I'm just really excited for you to listen to this. So I will not babble on any further. Here it comes. Hello, Bart. Welcome to Meant to Move, everybody. This is Bart. Thanks for coming.
Hey, thank you for having me, Ness, and everyone. It's actually really good to be here. I've been following the show a little bit over the past few months, so I feel very privileged to be here, Vanessa.
Not at all, mate. It is something that I've wanted to do even last year. I wanted to reach out, and you perked my interest. But I was going to start with a whole bunch of questions, but you perked my interest right before we even started, saying that you remembered the story about where we met. Now I need to know. You can't keep me hanging anymore.
Yeah. The really concerning thing is that you have no idea this story exists. So
Really?
Anyway, so I was, I don't know what you were doing, but I was a budding young personal trainer straight into the industry, working at Virgin Active Burke Street. I was learning the ropes, going about my thing. And one day I came into gym and I looked up at the group exercise studios, which are actually on sort of a mezzanine level. So you can see into them, but you can't really see what's happening. And all I saw was a balloon just popping up and then floating down and then popping up and floating down. I'm like, what the hell is going on in there? So I walked upstairs and I saw you were either with a client or you were with another trainer, and all you were doing was exploring different ways to pop the balloon up into the air with your hand or your foot or your butt or your shoulder, and then finding a way to get under it and do the same thing again. As at that point I went, there's something different with this person. She's onto something here.
That's an awesome story. I had no idea that existed. That is correct. And everyone who's listening who knows me will go, yeah, that sounds about right, to be honest. That's really cool.
Yeah, no, it was a really big introduction to who you are. And I know you've continued this idea of movement being not as typical as most people think it is. And I tend to go down that route as well. But for me, it was just sort of an eye-opener into who you were and sort of what the possibilities of movement are. And then I can't recall. You may have taken us through some Viper work, VIPR, those beautiful little tools.
I likely did. And you know what's really interesting? The acronym in Viper, one of the words is actually resilience, which is essentially where I was going to chat to you all about today. So like, you couldn't have introduced a better segue, by the way.
Great. Thank you. It's meant to be.
Yeah, it was meant to be. But I love stories like that, because I think there are some really interesting serendipitous moments in life, and sometimes we forget how much our actions have like a little ripple effect. And I love in the industry that we work in fitness, how, it's been years since I've spoken to you, Bart, but I've just kind of watched you from afar for so many years, and it's so good to be able to chat to you again, and particularly with what you've done recently. And I suppose my first question for you, and for people who have been listening to the introduction, the big one for me is this word resilience. And you use it a lot. I've been looking at your website, been looking at your Instagram. I think resilience is a really mixed up word sometimes. And so I'd love to hear what you think it is.
It's funny. I think about resilience and rebounding strength a lot. And I think to understand what resilience is, you must first understand what it isn't. And
Mm,
it's something that it's not genetic. It's something that you have to earn. And the only way that you can earn this strength and this resilience is through hard things. Whether you put yourself through that hard thing or that hard thing just drops in front of your lap. It's not something that is given. You have to earn it. It's not genetic. I also think in this beautiful digital world that we live in, resilience isn't optional. I think if we want to live the life that we want to live, and whether that's, and it's different for everyone, it's a higher salary for some, it's happiness for others, it's peace and stillness for other people. But if we want to live that life, we have to have some semblance of resilience because it's going to be hard. And the hardest lessons that we will learn will be through these tough times. And so I've been fascinated with resilience for a very long time, and it's now become sort of my thing, considering what's happened to me in my life, which we may or may not get into today. I think it's something that needs to be considered, and I spend a lot of time in the corporate world these days. I'm a keynote speaker, so I enter a lot of organizations, and it's something that's not often thought about, but there's always going to be challenges in business. There's always going to be challenges in the gym. There's always going to be challenges in life. And it's the businesses that respond to those challenges the best, in my opinion, through a strategic framework and through a unbridled passion for whatever you're pursuing in life. I think it's those people and those businesses that are going to be, they're going to be the best off in this bloody crazy world that we're living in. And it's only going to get
yeah.
crazier.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I just thought of something really interesting when you said that, you're kind of moved into this kind of corporate space now that you've been in fitness for so long, well, years and years now as well. Most of my clients' resilience challenges in terms of things that they need to overcome in their life actually come from work in the first place. You know what I mean? Like, it comes from my boss did this, or I have X amount of work, and it's it's starting to encroach on all of that. And do you think that the workplace has some level of duty of care to help people figure out this resilience piece? I just thought of that then and just kind of came into it.
I think it's all integrated. I think if we look at what a workplace or a business wants from their team, is that they want, as blunt as it sounds, a decent bottom line. They want good performance. They want to appease the board members or whatever stakeholders are involved. But the fact is, if they want that, a healthier, stronger, and more resilient workforce will get them there. Forcing facts and numbers and hard KPIs and expectations that are beyond anyone's idea down their throats, it doesn't work. And so what I'm finding is that and it shouldn't be like this. I shouldn't have to say the most progressive organizations are doing this. It should be everyone.
Yeah.
But the most progressive organizations that I walk into, they are people first, always, in every aspect. And they're the ones that will have the highest NPS scores. They're the ones that have the highest employee happiness. And they're the ones that have the highest performance. Like, it's no coincidence. The brands you and I have worked with, I definitely sit within that bout. The two that spring to mind are Virgin Active and Jets for me. It's always a people first approach. But there are other organizations in different industries that have the same thing. So it definitely should be considered. In fact, I think it almost should be paramount. We should be thinking backwards. We should be thinking, how can we help that human behind the job title first? And then the job will sort of take care of itself if the expertise and the willingness to learn is there. Do you agree?
Wholeheartedly. Yeah, I'm just replaying some client conversations in my mind right now, and I'm like, yeah. And it's something that comes up because we all talk about this kind of challenge that this, people are kind of battling between two things. I want to get healthy. I want to be fitter. I want to appear a certain way for myself and my family and the people who are close to me. But I'm battling against my work structure. I'm battling against workplace bullying. I'm battling against not coping and not being able to tell anyone that I'm not coping with the demands of both. And your point is so pertinent because this is that crazy world. And when you hear that just laid out like that, we go, why the fuck are we doing this? Like how did we get like this? So one of the things that I really loved that I saw on your page was, as soon as you start to blame someone else, as soon as you lay blame, you lose this kind of ownership. You become a victim. Can you, in the context of what we've just been speaking about, where people are trying to kind of overcome this imbalance in their life, how does shifting their blame or not being a victim help them?
I'll preface this with a lesson that I learned as a part of a few of my keynotes, and I won't dive into that sort of content today. I want this to be fresh and relatable. I had cancer when I was 23, and it took a lot of my body. It took my jaw, it took a bit of my leg, and in fact, what you see here on my neck and what you see in the floor of my mouth is actually my quad. So they had to take sort of parts of my body and Frankenstein me together, and I found myself at a really low point in my life. If I'm honest with you, I was convinced that I wasn't worthy of love, and ultimately wasn't worthy of life because of what happened to me. And I had a really introspective, deep moment one day. I was lying on my lounge room floor, and it's like I was tripping on something. I remember it viscerally. I was lying there and I was looking at my ceiling, and I saw my reflection, or what I thought was my reflection. And I realized in that moment that I hated that man, that he was running away from a problem that was clearly in front of him. At the time, I didn't even want to say the word cancer. I didn't want to show up to the challenge that was in front of me. And so I saw this person. I went, I really don't like who I am. I don't like how I'm acting. And then I decided to look harder and visualize the man that I wanted to become. And he was a leader. He was strong. He was a leader of industry, but also of community, of humanity. And it was at that moment I realized, if I blamed my cancer or I blamed the universe for why I am the way that I am, I would forever live a life of being a victim, a life of minimized impact because of my thoughts, not because of anything else. And so I made a choice that day to stop blaming. And it was hard. I stopped blaming the barista for getting my coffee wrong. I stopped blaming the universe for giving me cancer. I stopped blaming other people and other things for my problems. And something really interesting happened. I found a great freedom in that, because I realized I had my power back. And so this is something that I tell corporate teams. It's what I tell a lot of our trainers as well, a lot of our coaches, that, hey, we can blame the franchise, or we can blame the gym, we can blame the rental structure for our lack of success or for our problems. But that, my friend, is only going to make you a victim of the circumstance that you are in. But if we decide to own the problem that's in front of us, especially and even if it's not our fault, all of a sudden we can move forward. And I like to think of it as, get your visualization hat on here. It's a bit of a weird one. I like to think about every time you own the problem and stop blaming in your life, you drop a GPS pin in your life. Like, you have this big timeline in your life, and every time you own the problem, you drop a pin, and that starts a new journey. It's the start of a journey forward. And if you don't own the circumstance, if you don't drop that pin, you can't progress forward. You'll be stuck in this victim mindset. And the funny thing is as trainers, you are very well aware of this. There are some people that get stuck in this mentality, and every 45 minutes you see them at 5:45 a.m. on a Tuesday, they'll just tell you how the universe is dragging them down, and all you want to do is so just pick them up and go, "What's the common denominator? What's the common denominator?" There's
Yeah.
Look, it's a agreed. It's a tough mentality to teach someone, but I think behavior speaks louder words than our speech ever could. And so that's why I'm finding my story quite powerful in showing people this perspective. We can take this conversation in so many directions, but even in the crazy AI world that we're living in,
Hmm.
all of a sudden there's more opportunities for us to blame other things and other people for why we are the way that we are. But I'm finding if we take ownership, so I suppose there's two sides to this. Yes, we don't want to blame the world or anyone for our problems, but we also want to take responsibility. And this is even more pertinent when it comes to our health,
Hmm.
because and again, I'm preaching to the choir here, but a lot of people will come to us as trainers and they'll go, this is why I am the way that I am. I'm blaming genetics. I'm blaming my husband's diet because he doesn't want to do the health thing. I'm blaming, blaming, blaming. And very, very rarely do these people progress the way that we want them to,
Hmm.
because they're still stuck in this mentality of everything's happening to me, not happening for me. It's a very powerful mindset shift if and only if you can feel the difference it makes in your life, and that takes a bit of time.
Yeah. It's honestly, this message speaks to me quite broadly, and I really loved how you use a GPS pin on a timeline, and the visual that I got from that was like, if anyone's seen the movies Back to the Future, and in the second Back to the Future where he has to like return back to the offshoot of the future that he wasn't meant to have, right? Because he fucked it up or whatever. They did something wrong
Yeah.
in the past. That's kind of what it was to me. It's like, if you continue along this trajectory, can you see your future and what it's going to be like if you don't make any changes, if everything stays the same? But if you put that pin down where you are right now, maybe you can't see that future offshoot. Maybe you don't know where it goes, but perhaps that's better.
Mm.
That I think that that's a really important lesson. And you talked about responsibility and ownership. And this is hard. I think this is the hardest part about resilience, or like your health and fitness journey, or like finding the journey that you're talking about. Like, I had to look at myself and say, this isn't who I want to be. Like, that's a huge amount of ownership and
It's hard.
leaning into that distress and discomfort down here as well. Like, do you have any ways that the people who are listening to this, or the person listening to this, can say, okay, how do I start to lean into my own ownership? How do I start to lean into that discomfort?
I'll give you two strategies.
Awesome.
One is for the person that really struggles with this introspective stuff, and there's a lot of us, and I hate to say it, but a lot of us are males. We don't want to acknowledge the feelings that we have inside, so much so that we don't allow ourselves to even feel them. And this is sort of an entry level strategy for people wanting to look at themselves, see where they're at, and take responsibility for their life. And it's so simple and dumb, but it works. Go into your bathroom and look in the mirror and put your hand on your chest and say, look yourself in the eyes and say, hey, this is me. I am me. My challenges are mine. My strengths are mine. They are my responsibility. And you repeat that 3 or 4 times and you honestly say that to yourself, and you will feel it. Because very rarely do we literally face ourselves, and yet we still look at ourselves in the mirror every day. That's the first step. I want you to acknowledge that
Goosebumps.
feeling of ownership and try it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you know this about me, Ness, but I trained as an actor. So I'm
Yeah.
not, I'm
Yeah.
not I'm not a very good one, but what it did teach me was it taught me how to access this, how to bring down that veil of ego and really go deep. And that was the one that really helped me. And the second strategy is another really simple one. And the research backs this up all day, every day. And it's writing. It's getting the woo and esoterics that live in your head and giving it an arbitrary place on a petty piece of paper in reality. And it's an
Hmm.
activity I do quite often called closing your loops. I've done
Mm.
every mindfulness exercise you can think of, every meditative process. Yoga Nidra is one of my favorites. In fact, I did that at Berk Street many years ago. Awesome. But this is a really simple one because that can be quite tough for people to higher barrier to entry. But you just get a piece of paper, you get a pen, or you buy a phone with a stylus, which is what I've done, and you write. You
Hmm.
write the thoughts that are going on loop in your head. You write your strengths. You write your weaknesses. And if you do it, even just for a minute, and you find it really hard, great. That
Mm-hmm.
tells me that we need to do this more. We need to practice it. Just like any skill, understanding how you're feeling and taking ownership of you and your life, it requires like a squat. It requires practice. You can't have a beautifully balanced, perfect squat the first time. Some people do, and I'm very jealous, but most of us don't. And it's the same with this sort of stuff here. But you're right. It's it's really hard because for a lot of
Mm.
us, there are some aspects of our life that we don't like or that we don't want. And the hardest thing for us to do is to acknowledge that. But once again, we can't move forward unless we drop that pin, unless we can take that ownership.
Yeah. That first strategy, like so incredibly powerful and so hard because you're right. Like we mask ourselves so much that we don't even look at ourselves anymore. And I see this play out in two ways. And you mentioned, I think you were 100% right that men may find it challenging to sit in with themselves and acknowledge their feelings. Or what I also find, again, mostly women, but many men apologize for having feelings. So I get this like apology for, if we're in a session, for crying or being angry or telling me about how they feel or this rage or frustration. And there's an apology for like telling me, which is a safe space. I'm your coach. You can tell me whatever the fuck you want. And there's no judgment from me. Like, I
No.
don't care. Yeah. Right. Like I am here for you. And I think that that's quite big because apologizing for yourself or
Yes,
not even looking at yourself, that's a huge first step.
it is. And they're behaviors that we don't even clock. Far be it from me. I'm by no means a psychologist, but our childhood conditioning or often brings in these behaviors with us. But it's funny. I've had a number of clients, and here's a bit of a litmus test. This is fun. Is there one Is there one sort of section of exercise or mobility or visualization that you find your clients break down more in or are more open to?
That's a great question. I mean, many people who train with me very quickly have to be put in weird and awkward and strange positions. So that kind of goes
Right.
out of the window
That's
pretty
how you know you're
quickly.
doing something right.
So I think automatically feels a little safer when that's one of the first things that people do with me is I kind of go, oh, we're going to do really easy things and we're also going to do really weird things. Straight away, it's kind of like a little bit different. But I would say that people apologize more for like again more for the emotion or if they like if they make a mistake. I'm like, I don't care. You made
Yeah,
you made
no,
a
it's a part of
mistake.
the process.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, again, I think that kind of ingrained either not facing yourself. So that would be like, as a coach, we see that you go to bed really late every day. And so you either cancel your morning sessions or you're not consistent or whatever it might be, something along the lines. And we point it out to you that's where that resistance, that's where we meet that resistance is like, we see this thing and then we present it to you. What do you do with that information when we present it to you? And I hate being criticized. Definitely have a huge problem. And I have had a huge problem with that, right? And it's something that I've had to work on quite intensely. But that's when you're working with a coach, that stuff's gold.
Yes, it is. You're also talking to a person who feels very uncomfortable being criticized. So don't. So you're in good company. Don't worry. But you're right. It's funny. It's really interesting though, because when you do present them with that information, whether it be a new lead position or a new concept on anything, you can tell a lot about a person about how they react to it. Whether they sort of dismiss it, give it their 100%, or trust you innately. It's sort of a litmus test in a way of your relationship. Because if you've really gotten to them, they'll be like, yeah, I'll do that weird backwards contralateral thing. Yeah, let's go. I'll give it 100%.
Well, it's funny. I can get them to do the weird movement. I just can't get them to get to bed on time.
You are
We're
not the
doing
only
one
one.
thing.
This.
Yeah, we're doing one thing right. Okay, cool. I like where this is going. This is a really interesting one that I saw recently that you posted about
Mhm.
because we're talking about ownership. And I think that gets a little scary for people. And I think there's a lot of hard in people's lives. So on the flip side, you said something in one of your blog posts that really spoke to me. It says, play isn't the opposite of work. Play is the opposite of numbness. And that was awesome. I really loved that. Can you go into like what you learned recently about play and how that helps combine that holistic place with ownership and responsibility?
I learned a very valuable lesson about play at Bluey's World. We got two beautiful kids, Esme, who's almost 14 months, and Lysander, who's almost 3.5, about thereabouts. And so we took them to Bluey's World. If anyone knows Bluey, whether you love it or you hate it, it's half built for the parents as it is for the kids. And there was this wonderful quote by Emerson, and I'm not going to butcher it. I'll send it to you afterwards so I get the quote right. But it's reestablished this idea in me that we lose play as adults, or the ability to play, so much so that even when we play with our kids, we're always holding back. And in a world that is becoming number by the second, I think play is almost the antidote to the distractions that we're looking for in our life. Mm-hmm. And they're becoming thicker, and they're becoming more algorithmically compelling, these distractions, whether it be the device in our hand, whether it be the streaming service, whether it be the AI that's slowly taking all of our jobs, where we're becoming numb to our feelings, which we've sort of already touched on today, but we're also becoming numb to what it is to be human. And without making this a discussion about will AI take all of our jobs in fitness, I'll just note it's never going to take away our humanity, and you can't replace your humanity. Humans will always want to be in front of other humans, so much so that it's hardwired into us. There are certain hormones that release when we're in front of people that we cannot get in front of a screen or cannot get from AI. But we're becoming more and more distracted from what it is to be human, and I think play is a very, very important part of that. And if I'm honest with you, it's something that I still struggle with to this day, even having kids. I was playing with Lysander last night, and he was in a very imaginative mood. So I tried to feed that as much as I could. I found it hard. I found my own self trying to block my creativity and just sort of going numb, funnily enough.
It's
but
tricky.
I think learning, it is. I think about getting that, again, it's a skill, finding that ability to think on your feet and have the creativity and have the playfulness in your life, be it in the gym, be it in your job. I'd love to see a bit more of that in the corporate world, if I'm honest. If we lean into that creative side of our brain more and allow ourselves to be silly and allow ourselves to be dumb and allow ourselves to say yes and improvise, I think
yes,
we're going to be more creative, we're going to be more productive, and we're going to be less numb in an ever-growing, numbing world.
Yeah. Look, and I think the hard part about this concept is that we don't know as adults what we want to do for play. So I teach calisthenics, and I know you've done Tough Mudder, which I'm going to ask you about. But for me, calisthenics is this beautiful bridge between learning new skills and play. Because I think learning is also underrated for mindfulness, for presence and things like that. But all of the adults who I deal with teaching calisthenics, some have done it before, most have never done it ever in their entire life. The fear of looking silly is what holds most people back, because we have
crazy.
Crazy,
isn't it?
We just get told so much that like the way that you appear to other people is the most important thing in the world, and it's like, no, not at all. And when you're learning how to do certain things in calisthenics, you will fall, you will look ungraceful, you will flap about like a weirdo. Yeah. But that's the fun of it. Like, that is the funnest part of it.
It is. It's funny that you sparked something in me, because that looking silly is vulnerability, right? And I'm still working on sort of how I connect the dots here, but I'm a firm believer that vulnerability precedes resilience. Vulnerability precedes strength. We need to get weaker before we get stronger. We need to fall on our ass a few times before we can understand how to do a proper one-legged deadlift, Without that vulnerability, or even the ability to allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we're not going to get stronger, be it through physical strength or be it through mental strength. And this is a battle I have with a lot of the groups that I present to, because God willing, I love everyone I present to. I love all the organizations I go into, but they'll even agree with me. There are some some stuffy old blokes in the room. They're so fixed in their ways, they don't allow themselves to fail, or they don't allow themselves to look silly. But take it from a guy who allows himself to be vulnerable on stage every single week. That's the way we get better, whether
Mm,
it be through calisthenics or otherwise.
yeah. So the reason why I mentioned Tough Mudder was Tough Mudder a way for you to play, or was that a different type
Yeah,
of challenge or something for you? Can you tell us a little bit about your experiences with that?
I love it. There was a period of my life where obstacle course racing, Tough Mudder, Spartan races, everything in between was my life. I trained with Tim Sloan. I'm sure you've met
Yes.
through Virgin. He was my coach for a very long time.
He'll love the shout out, by the way.
Yeah, he's a great OCR coach, that's for sure. But he and so that was my life, and Tough Mudder was a big part of it. So much so that I ended up doing some of the warm ups for Tough Mudder as they came in. But what I love about it is it strips away everything. You train in this perfectly temperature controlled gym with perfectly weighted bars, and you can do that as much as you want, but it can never prepare you for you going through 100 meters of mud that's up to your knees. And there's something, and the thing that happens in almost every race is the first time you see that mud pit, there's always a bit of you that goes, oh, I don't want to go in that. Then you realize you have to get on to the next part. But as soon as you do, you realize this is this is awesome. I can feel my
Yeah.
microbiome diversifying in real time, you know? And there's something so innately human about that. And I specifically love Tough Mudder because it's all about the team. So they promote you to do it as a team, and some of the obstacles you need to do as a team. And then once you're focusing all of a sudden on other people, getting them up that 10-foot half pipe or whatever it is, or getting them through the ice bath, or getting them through those electric wires at the end of it, you're serving something bigger than yourself. And by the end of it, you couldn't give a rat's about how fast you did it. All you cared about is getting every single person through that thing in that moment, in that time, with the biggest smile on your face that you can't get in any other way. So I'm a big proponent for bonding through adversity, absolutely, but I'm an even bigger proponent for bonding through adversity with your team in mind. And so that's why I love, and unfortunately I can't run anymore. I've got and again, without opening the sorrow door too much, I have a disability. It affects my nervous system, and so my legs are at a point now where they can't take the impact of running anymore.
That's
But
tough.
there's still a part. It's really hard because there's a part in me that still knows the feeling of what it is to run at pace off your own steam, and there's nothing that can replace that. So I dearly miss it, absolutely. But I'm glad I ran so many kilometers in my life when I could actually run. So that's a whole other aspect to it as well. It's you versus the elements, you versus the mud, you with your team doing something really base and really, really, and really fun at the same time. You've done Tough Mudder, surely.
Think I did a part of one because I had
Okay.
to at Virgin, because I got roped into creating programs for Tough Mudder somehow, somewhere along the line, Bart, because
The mudder maker programs.
correct. But I just came up with the weird exercises for the programs that
Nice.
then you did in the middle of
Yeah, we
the
did.
course.
And I remember in that program taking the Vipers down, whether this is legal or not, I don't know. We took them down to the pool, and we were
Yeah, I
doing
made you
like,
put them in the pool. Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
overhead carries, pushing them
Yep.
underwater. That was you.
Yep.
Thank you.
That was me. Yep. That was me. Sorry about that. But no, not actually. Sorry. Because it was really cool.
And really fun. Really fun.
Yeah. So I am in a lot of admiration for you moving into this keynote speaking and trying to kind of change and transform people's, you know, headspace, I suppose, about all of this. As you're speaking, as you're now coming into this kind of era of your life, what is it that you really want people to gain from your messages, or to gain as a part of this kind of new step for yourself? What are you looking to help people with?
I think the overarching theme is for people to understand how strong they can be and how strong they can allow themselves to be. I
Mm,
think that's sort of the overarching principles here. And look, far be it from me to say, hey, I've figured out the solution and I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm still slowly fleshing that out. And in fact, the more organizations I go into, the more I realize the solution for some people is always going to be different to the solution for others. But the first hurdle is for them to understand just how great they can be, and for them to truly understand that and acknowledge that in their life, and then providing them with some tools that will hopefully get them to see themselves the way I see them
Mm.
and the way a coach will see them. And I know it's an almost impossible task, but to empower people to feel better. And because I've had this, and I feel very grateful to having the experience in the fitness industry that I have. And to be honest, I'm still in it. I'm still helping out a few gyms with their coaches and still training people, still doing my thing from a consultant point of view. But I'm really glad I had the career that I did have, because it made me realize that, general statement coming, but the solution to a lot of the problems we have in our life, and the solution to our stagnancy in life and our unhappiness in life, the solution starts with this. It starts with your physical being. And I've thankfully understood very early on that the mind and the body are intricately and impossibly integrated. And they're always talking to each other. And in fact, suffice to say, a stronger and more resilient physical body will lead to a stronger and more resilient mental body. And often that doesn't work the other way. In fact, it doesn't work the other way around. We
Mm-hmm.
can
Yeah.
we can do mental activities, neuroplasticity activities, reframing activities mentally for the rest of our lives, but it's not going to impact the resolve we can build in our physical body. And a part of what I've learned through my time in the industry, I've diverted a bit. I'll come back to it. Don't worry. But I think a thing that I've learned in this industry is that we have an image problem, and there's a
Yes.
pun intended in there somewhere. But people come to our gyms because they think they want to look a certain way, and they might absolutely. But I've learned that the way we move will dictate how we look. How we look is always a byproduct of fitness. It's never the reason why we do it. If I can get you to if I can get you to hinge properly, your glutes are going to look better. If I can get you to do a decent controlled pull up, your arms are going to be bigger. It doesn't work the other way around. And so I'm a firm believer in the physical body informing the mental body. And so a part of my message is that, yes, I want you to understand the potential you have to do anything you want in this world. We've got one shot. Let's do it now. Let's build this thing now, build the parachute on the way down. I want you to understand that, but I want you to understand a lot of that starts with the health of your body. And I'm at a point in my speaking career where that message is slowly coming through a little bit, but I've learned, I'm sure you have as well, that if I come out on stage and say, we need to eat whole foods, we need to drink water, we need to sleep, I can guarantee you 99% of people it will go over their head. But if we can use our behavior as a language that our words cannot speak, if we model what it's like to be stronger, to have the happiness, to have the fulfillment, and then unveil, hey, the reason why that is because I know how to do a decent lunge. That's when they might follow suit. It's a hard one to get across. I like to think of it as the hardest people to influence in your life are the people that are closest to you. Like to
Mm.
mum and dad, I'll always be Bart. I'll always be the Bart that once fell off a boat when he was fishing. I'll always be Bart who, got knocked out in footy. I'll never be Bart the fitness professional. I'll never be Bart the motivational speaker. I'm just Bart. The same with you and the people that are close to you. They're hard to influence. But if you can let your behavior and your actions say that language and say what you want to say, that's the easiest way through. And I'm finding that with my speaking as well. Because the funny thing is, Ness, I'll do the presentation. It's very inspiring. There's lots of really, really good takeaways. But a lot of the questions I'll get afterwards are, how can I increase my bench press? How much should I be sleeping every night? Do I really need to eat vegetables? And I'm like, yes, we're doing something right. I've opened up a door indirectly, and that's how we can have influence. So to answer your
Yeah.
question in a very roundabout way, I want people to understand how strong they can be and how beautiful their life can be if they allow themselves to. And as a byproduct, your physical health will inform that life.
It wasn't a roundabout way. That was like a come full circle way. Don't diminish that. That was a beautiful answer. I love that. I also were a couple of things that struck me there is what you said, if you allow yourself. And that kind of tied in so well to what we were saying at the start, where we blame ourselves, or if we're a victim, or if we don't look at ourselves, then we may not really understand our potential. But one thing that I'd like to ask you, which is not on my list, but just came up for
Let's go.
for what you said, was, as a coach and as a inspirational seeker, how do you see the person in front of you? Like you said, no one will see you like your coach, and I'm really curious if, how do you see that person in front of you?
I'm an optimist, almost definitely to a fault in some instances in my life, but I'll always see someone from a love, kindness, and trusting point of view until you tell me otherwise. And I think that's a mindset that I've instilled in myself based upon this idea of, hey, let's not blame, let's not judge, let's just take people as they are. But without sounding too woo-woo and too weird, I see the beauty in humans in ways that they don't. And I think a lot of coaches have this ability too. And you can speak to someone and if they're holding back, or if they're settling, or if they're choosing mediocrity, or if they're lying to you. I think the good coaches have that feeling. But I'll always see beauty in the person in front of me. I'll always see someone who is loved, if not directly spoken by someone close to them, by me. I'll always see someone from a position of kindness, purely based upon the fact that we're all in this together. We, for whatever reason, have been dropped into this point in life, in this world, for a reason or not. I don't know, but I, like you, I believe in serendipitous moments. I believe in a lot of things happening for a reason, and I believe that the universe and people and our nervous systems and the negative ions in the air, they're all sending us signals all of the time. And I think if you're open to those signals, including the beauty of the person that's in front of you, you see the world in a different way, and the world opens up opportunities to you in a different way too. Kindness and love.
That's awesome. That's such a great answer, because, and again, I don't want to stereotype, but it's just from my experience and what I've seen, is hearing that also from a male, saying that you see the love and that you have love for someone. That's so big. And I was chatting to my partner about this recently, because we've been doing a lot of the introspective work, and some amazing things have been going on. It's honestly incredible. And
Right.
when men are open to love, and I say men more because as a female, we live in a world where we blame men for hurting themselves, hurting us, doing all of these things. Society is bad because of men. If we can show love, and if they can show love, if they're allowed to show love without being ridiculed for it, that's such a huge shift in everyone being able to have permission to have feelings, and to do silly things, and to enjoy that, and to be vulnerable, and all of those things that you've talked about the whole time we've been chatting today. I think finishing on that is really interesting. And was that something that's innate for you, or was that something you had to work towards?
Something I had to learn, and
Yeah.
I had to learn it the hard way. And my wife's just on the couch, subtly listening into our conversation. But she told me a lot about this. And to be honest, a lot of things have happened to me that have made me build this. Jane calls it a fortress around myself. And I didn't believe it when she first told me, but I've now come to realize it's very true. And I'm not out of line to say that I think a lot of people in this world have a fortress as well, that they've built through what's happened to them, their trauma, their conditioning, what have you. But when Jane met me, she said it was like she had to chip away through these fortress walls to get to the gooey center on the inside. And if I'm honest with you, the walls, they still come up, and they do. I think that's always, it's never it's never a state of saying, hey, I'm always open, I'm always here, I'm always available. It's an ongoing process. It's the same with mental health. You never solve it. It's always an ongoing process. But she said it was like chipping away through these walls to get to the gooey center. And I think allowing myself to understand, one, that these walls exist, and two, that there is a gooey center, really helped me compartmentalize what happened to me in the past, and made me realize just how numb I was to the relationships in front of me. Because before I met her, and again to this day a little bit, I was very selfish from necessity, because I was protecting myself. I was protecting myself from further cancer. I was protecting myself from pain. I was protecting myself from trauma. And I don't want the person listening to this think to think I have to go through that stuff to be this way too. If I want to be really in touch with who I am from an internal point of view, that I need to go through all of these traumatic things. You don't. You just need to acknowledge that you are the way you are for a reason, and that you can allow yourself to access these things, but it takes quite a bit of the woo-woo, weird, and petty work to get there, but it works. It does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I also think I allowed myself to be around people that didn't ridicule that. Like there are some friendships groups I had when I was a lot younger that if you were vulnerable in any sort of way, they'd do that passive aggressive Australian male thing and put you down, but sort of just kind of say it, but not really say it, but still
Yep.
makes you think you can't be that person.
Yep.
And I think allowing myself to move away from those relationships and being relationships that mattered and were connected, albeit there were few of them, I think allowing myself to do that as well really helped this introspective process. But you're right. I mean, it's funny when I get up on stage now and I tell my story and I open up the way that I do and I speak the way that I do. I understand that I don't speak like normal motivational speakers. But when I do that, blogs come up to me and they go, that must have been really hard. But now I've done it so many times that I feel free up there. I feel like I'm learning something about myself every time that I do it. And if we can get more blokes in Australia to do the same, to look silly, to be vulnerable and understand that they too may have a fortress around them, then we're going to be better off on so many levels. But you're right though, it's hard and it's a journey to get there.
No, I love, just how you've approached that and just giving us that little bit of insight, because I think I didn't want to delve too deep into your story. I want people to go and find it. I want people to go and find you. You've got your podcast, you do your speaking. And I think that, I mean, I haven't seen you speak personally. I would love to, because just from talking to you, I can feel how much of an impact that would make. And I am so grateful for you putting that message out there in the world. So thank you so much for that.
My absolute pleasure.
One last question before we go is, do you have anything that, for the person listening, that you have not yet said that you would like to say to them for them to take away today?
Let me think. I think it's so easy to settle for mediocrity these days. I think it's so easy to watch another episode of Ted Lasso, and it's so easy to infinite scroll 20 minutes before your bed. So I think my message is to don't settle. In a world that's encouraging you to settle for bad food and a poor lifestyle, poor mental health, and an average salary, you don't have to. And I encourage you to find something that makes you uncomfortable. Seek some sort of discomfort that makes you realize just how strong you actually are. So don't think you have to settle for normal. Normal in 2026 is unhealthy. Normal is boring. Normal is numb. Don't settle. Find another way. That's a pretty good motivational speakery end.
I like that. I just think that's an excellent way to end that podcast. But no, thank you so much for your time. But I really appreciate it. All of your how to find you is in the show notes if anyone wants to find. And yeah, I'll hopefully get you back on here if you will come back.
Anytime, Ness. Anytime. I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I don't want you to miss out on future episodes of Meant to Move. When you subscribe or follow this podcast on your favorite listening app, you'll be the first to know when new episodes are released. You'll also never lose your place in an episode if you need to leave early. So go on, join, and subscribe to the community that's committed to holistic health and wellness. Let's move forward together.